Good morning to everybody. Today on our interview series, we've got Adam Houlahan, who is the director and CEO of Web Traffic That Works, and he's highly respected and highly regarded within LinkedIn fields. And so I'd like to welcome Adam to our interview today.
Thanks, Derek. Great to be here with you.
Yep, and it's great to have you on board. And also, I'd like to basically kick off. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what your experiences has been with LinkedIn, and how long ago did you actually get started?
Yeah, so probably got started 7 or 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, I really didn't have any sort of knowledge of social media at all, let alone, LinkedIn. And I was actually working with a company and was researching why some other companies around the world in the same space as them, these guys were a sort of global player, why other companies were doing better than them. Turned out to be that they were just good early adopters of social media. And that piqued my interest in social media in general, just started to connect with a lot of influencers around the world and upping my own knowledge on it. And through that journey, I just really started to see the value and the potential of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so over a bit of time, I started to focus more and more just on LinkedIn. About almost 3 years ago now, I put out my which was my second book, but it was the first one that was specifically about LinkedIn, called the LinkedIn Playbook. I think we're over 10,000 copies of that around the world now. Spoken at lots of events off the back of that. Last year in December, I put out my next book, which is called Influencer, which is all about how you position yourself as a person of influence. But it's sort of, the premise of that is that the easiest way to do that is through LinkedIn. So yeah, that's kind of the fast track of 7 years.
Okay, fantastic. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience when you actually first got started with LinkedIn and your experience and when it started generating results for you?
Sure, yeah. So again, I was working with this particular company called One Group at the time, but One Group's actually the only job I've ever had in my life. Prior to that, I'd run my own businesses and I just had this stint of running this particular company for a while, which was amazing. But I always wanted to get back into kind of, be the master of my own destiny, so to speak. And so I made the decision that, at some point I was going to do that. And so I really started using LinkedIn at that point to start building connections. I knew that I was going to create a digital agency. And when we first kicked that off, it was really more of a one size fits all. So we did Facebook marketing and LinkedIn and Instagram and all sorts of stuff. And I was just using LinkedIn to really, generate, new clients and leads and referral partners and just people that connect me with, the right type of people. So really from that day, it really was generating good results for me. And of course, over a period of time, I came to the conclusion, and I still believe that the days of the one-stop, one-shop fits all type of digital agencies, I don't think they really have a big place in the future. Mm-hmm. The agencies that tend to specialize and do one kind of thing and do it really, really well, I believe that's the future of digital marketing. And so we kind of transitioned out of all those other things we were doing and just focused 100% into LinkedIn. And of course, the more we niched into that, the more we focused on that, the clearer the message to the market was of what we did, what our value proposition was, and the faster we actually grew.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's great news. And what did you find were your biggest challenges when you first got started with LinkedIn?
Well, I think, as you know, LinkedIn's a moving target. Well, probably all social media is, but, what you could do 12 months ago is completely, not everything's changed, but it's constantly evolving. So staying on top of, all the little nuances. One thing, LinkedIn's really, really bad at is telling us when they make changes to the platform and and whilst in fairness, no platforms share algorithm changes or things like that.
For those of you who are watching, LinkedIn doesn't tell you when they've made changes or updates. You just log in one day and there's something new.
That's it. Or something that you used to be have and it's gone. So
exactly.
It's so yeah. I think my challenges were no different to everyone else's. Just really keeping on top of all of those constant changes. I'd suggest probably at the time when Microsoft purchased LinkedIn. It was a few years ago now, but for a little while it was sort of business as usual. But then we started to see a lot of change and at quite a rapid pace, and that keeping up with that was certainly challenging.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and when did you realise that you were starting to make some serious progress with LinkedIn as far as your business was concerned?
Well, I think it was just when we started to focus just purely on LinkedIn, where we moved away from all of the other things we were doing,
Mm-hmm.
which of course meant we had to kind of rejig our team and everything a little bit as well. But once the more we focused on just that one thing, it allowed us to probably do three things really, really easily. It allowed us to create content that just made sense to a specific group of people. It allowed us to create products that were just focused on exactly what people either wanted or we knew they needed, and they weren't in the marketplace. And of course, it allowed us to like I said, build our team in a very, very targeted way. With all of our team are remote around the world. Mm-hmm. Work, like in an office or anything like that. We all work, as you can see, pretty casually dressed today. That's pretty normal for us. Yeah. We all work from beach locations or wherever we choose in the world, and we were able to reach out to just the right type of people in the right. Didn't matter where they lived. We have a team in London and have a good team in the Philippines. Other people that work with us here in Australia, the US. Romania, wherever the best people were, we were able to attract them with a business model that made sense. Mm-hmm. and sort of enhance their lifestyle in the way that they wanted to work as well.
And without going into specific details about who your clients might actually be, what do you find has been the biggest challenges that you've come across that your clients are facing?
Well, I think if there was a universal challenge that we all have is obviously in gaining new leads, and secondly to that in converting those leads. So mm-hmm. A lot of what we found was we could create the best strategy that it was known to man, but if the client's product or service was, let's just be nice about that and say, substandard. Yep. You can't put lipstick on a pig. So part of what we do now is before we take on a new client in our higher level programs is make sure that their product or service has tangible value to the marketplace. And there's been cases where we've said, look, it's probably best that you actually worked on this part of your business a bit first. Mm-hmm. Get that right and come back to us, and then we'd be much more confident in getting you a better result. So probably the biggest challenge on occasions was making sure that the product or service that we were marketing had legs, had traction.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Well, that's great advice. And what would you say has been your most satisfying or enjoyable experience with LinkedIn to date so far during the last 7 years?
Well, I'd have to say just in the way that it's allowed me to just create the lifestyle I want. I travel all the time. So, I love speaking at events. As I was just sharing with you earlier, I'm constantly traveling around the world pretty much every month or around Australia or both. And I get to work, I live on the Gold Coast, which, we love. I'm right beside the beach. Some days I literally take my laptop and go and work from a park just near the beach. So it's because it's an online, LinkedIn being an online platform, And the way that we've built the business, attracts clients who are, they don't need that face-to-face, you don't have to come into their office type of thing. They're really interested in the result more so than, coffee meetings and stuff like that. So I'd have to say, what it's done for me mostly is, give me the lifestyle that I really wanted to build.
Okay, fantastic. And I guess that's what it comes down to at the end of the day is whatever our businesses might be, is creating that lifestyle that we all crave, that we all want to achieve, the dream that we're all looking for.
Well, exactly. So, we spend a lot of time, at work. So better to love what you do and optimize it to, so it works for you more so than the other way around. I'm not saying that's easy. It's not, but if we aim for that, then and we get it, then life's pretty good.
Absolutely. And are there any recommendations or suggestions that you would give to people who are just starting out on LinkedIn?
I'd say the main thing is, I still find the biggest challenge is that people just really don't understand how the platform works. So what I would say is, read some books, do some courses, get to understand how LinkedIn really works. And at the absolute barest minimum, just make sure you got a really well-presented profile. I still think, I believe like there's 600 million profiles on LinkedIn now. I have to go as far as I believe 95% of them could be better, if not, absolutely need a complete overhaul. So there's not a lot of people who are really doing it at the highest level. And I wouldn't say you even need to do it at the highest level, but a minimum level is to just to have a well-presented profile, if nothing else. Okay,
and also to optimize your profile so that it improves where it ranks within the LinkedIn search results.
Yeah, which is part of that whole process. So.
Yeah. Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about, well, let's talk about being an influencer on LinkedIn. For those of us who are the uninitiated, what would you describe, or can you tell us what an influencer actually is?
Sure. And look, and Derek, it's a great distinction because there's two types of influencers. There's what the LinkedIn deem to be, their stable of influencers. And they have that little sort of blue tag, I'm sure you've seen on profiles, which denotes them as being LinkedIn influencers. And these are people like Richard Branson and Ariana Huffington, and but they're not only those people. That one of my clients is one of the LinkedIn influencers. So it does sort of come down into mere mortals, but. So that's one level of LinkedIn influence. You cannot do anything to manipulate that. You're either invited to be a part of that process or you're not. And I actually don't believe that they even have that open anymore. It's kind of a closed off now. So the real influencers we're talking about are the people who just tend to be influential within their industry. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. So I choose to be influential in the LinkedIn space, but there's other people. One of our clients is a lawyer. He's just positioned himself as an influencer within the field of law. However, what it also means, and I believe is the most powerful way to use LinkedIn, is to position yourself as an influencer within a specific niche. Yep. So using my lawyer mate as an example, to say I'm going to be influential in the field of law is too broad. That's there's just so many facets of law that again I don't believe even in law that the days of law firms who can do every facet of law will exist in the future. It's more the boutique firms. These particular guys, there's actually two partners. One is very influential within wills and estates. The other guy is very influential within a program that they developed, which allows it's almost like a subscription model for legal advice. So they position themselves just within those very narrow niches of law. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what really, an influencer, in my opinion, is. It's just someone who focuses and chooses to be very, very specific about what it is that they share content about, what they sort of build their products and business about, and how they go about, getting that message out to the market using LinkedIn as a platform to do it.
And what would you describe as being the main benefits of positioning yourself as an influencer or a specialist within a particular niche part of people's specific industries?
It's a good question. What it does is it allows your marketing to be very, very clear.
Mm.
If you're trying to, and look, I'll give an example. I lost count of how many times I've had this conversation now, someone will come to us and say, look, this is what our business does, and we want to promote this, and this. And I go, well, and in fact, I had the conversation yesterday with someone in Singapore. He said, I have this product and I do this. I said, okay, so which one do you want to be influential in? Of course, both. Well, you got to pick one. So the real value is being very, very, let's say it's very, very difficult to be influential in more than one thing, because you're kind of building a network of people and whatever that are mostly interested in, say option A. Once you start talking about option B, that you're kind of confusing them. Mm-hmm. So LinkedIn, in my opinion, works best, even if you have multiple different skill sets or services, is to pick the one that you want to be really, really well known for and focus in on that. And of course, the next question is always, well, how do I pick which one? My answer to that is always, what you're looking for is like an intersection of the thing you're most passionate about doing and the thing that makes you the most money. And of course, if those two things cross, then that's the perfect one. And there has been many cases where people said, well, I'm really, really passionate about doing this, but I make all my money over here doing that. Yeah. I said, well, go with the one that makes you the money. Yeah.
Everyone's got to pay the bills.
Exactly, yeah.
And how does somebody actually go about becoming or positioning themselves as an influencer? What would you recommend there?
Well, as you said, the first step of that is optimizing your profile around that mm-hmm. Particular niche. Yep. So you've got to be using language that the people who would be interested in that, through your summary and your position descriptions, things like that. You've got to go deeper than that, like you said, like in LinkedIn want to show you in searches, you've just got to tell them, what searches you want to be shown for. So you've got to optimize your profile with keywords in specific places, like the professional headline directly below your name, mm-hmm. in your position descriptions, how you use your title. As an example, I think one of the most redundant terms to use in a position description would be something like CEO or general manager. If I'm looking for an accountant, I don't look for a CEO of an accounting firm. I look for an accountant. Exactly. So make sure you're using the words that people would search for. That's step one. Once you've got that done, then it's really all about your content. And, LinkedIn really these days is a content platform. LinkedIn, unlike other platforms, like, say, for example, Facebook, Facebook is 100% a pay-to-play platform today. Mm. You can have the best content in the world, but if you don't pay them to boost it and share it, then nobody's going to see it. It could also, conversely, you could have pretty crap content, and as long as you pay them, they'll still show up to people. LinkedIn is very much looking for people who are creators of good content, and if you give it to them in a niche that where they can be clear about who they can show that to in feeds and things like that, LinkedIn is very open to sharing good quality content to the right type of people. Personally, I've had posts that 100,000, 500,000 plus kind of views, wow. Totally organic, without any form of boosting or there is no such thing as boosting on LinkedIn. So it just, it has to be good content. So that's what I believe is, how you really position yourself is through that really good quality content. The third thing, of course, is being a responsible LinkedIn user. So not spam, connecting and spamming people and pitching offers and things like that all the time. It's all about that great content and help, using messaging or whatever to be helpful and offer free advice or helpful advice to people where it's appropriate.
And what about the regularity with posting content? How consistent should people be with actually putting their content up on LinkedIn?
I'll share some statistics with you that I'm sure your crew will find interesting. But as we know, there's about 600 million people on LinkedIn now. Of that 600 million, there's only about 1 million that are sharing content regularly on a consistent basis, which basically means that they're sharing content on a weekly basis. Mm-hmm. And there's only about 100,000 of that million. Of course, these are rounded rough numbers, but there's only about 100,000 of that million that, do it in, have a sort of at least an understanding of the algorithms and how LinkedIn likes content shared, what they don't like putting links in articles. I'm pretty sure we're all aware, they don't like that anymore. So it's a very low number of people that are getting it right. But look, we work to a 13-piece strategy. So we use 13 pieces of content per month. Roughly that breaks down to 3 times a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then, of course, it's a mixture of pulse articles, natively uploaded videos, and status posts. A bit of a mixture of those.
So for those of you who are watching, with 600 million profiles on LinkedIn, and you've got 1 million people who are regularly posting content and 100,000 people who basically know what they're doing, okay, that's got to tell you that LinkedIn is still in its infancy, and it's still a relatively uncrowded space for people to put up more and more content. So there's some amazing opportunities there.
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn's own internal goals are to have 3 billion people on the platform. So, they're a long, long way from that. But like anything, there will always be a very, very high number. I wouldn't be concerned by the 600 million. Like you said, Derek, I'd focus on the, being one of the 100,000.
Exactly.
Put that in percentages. It puts you, if you did that, if you had a well-presented profile, and you're sharing good content every week, you're basically going to be in the top 0.02% of all users on LinkedIn globally.
Yeah, and that's one hell of a marketplace to be part of.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you actually suggest to people if they want to position themselves as an influencer? Obviously, they've got to get their profile set up, optimized, and then they've got to start posting that particular content. Is there any particular content that you would recommend over other types of content? I mean, we've got the text posts, we've got articles, we've got video. What have you found to work the best, or is it a mixture of all 3?
It definitely is a mixture of all 3. And the reason for that is that's what LinkedIn wants. They're looking for you to use a mixture of those things. Having said that, I would put very little emphasis on pulse articles. Mm-hmm. Now, if we were having this conversation a year and a half ago, it'd be the complete reverse. At that point, LinkedIn wanted pulse articles, which, your long form, basically like your own blog on there. But now, the reason that they've made the change is really because, more and more we're consuming content on mobile devices. So, reading a 1,500 word pulse article on a iPhone or whatever is, it's quite challenging. So the status posts are a maximum 1,300 characters of text, which is roughly 200 words, and that's what they want. They want short form, punchy, but they want content that creates engagement. They want people to stay on the LinkedIn platform, and they want what I'd say is the best type of content is the content that gets people talking. So posing questions or asking for an opinion, but from a position of, expertise that, that space. and it's targeted at the people that, obviously you should be connecting with people who would be interested in that field of influence you're trying to build, and you're trying to engage with those people more, and doing that through, that mix. Video, obviously video is the holy grail. LinkedIn Live is coming. It's started its rollout, and I still think it's probably at least 6 months away, if not longer, before it's available to the general LinkedIn community. But if there was an emphasis, I would say put it on video.
So video content that's beneficial and useful to your specific niche, your target market, your target audience.
Correct.
Yeah. And is there any particular length or duration of videos that you would recommend?
We find, around the 2 to 3 minutes, it generally gets the best traction. If it's less than a minute, LinkedIn doesn't seem to, I think, all I can say is there's potentially an algorithm at play where they don't tend to like stuff that's less than 1 minute. Mm-hmm. In theory, again, it doesn't work on necessarily on length of video, but the size of the video file. But the maximum size is 5 gigabytes, which for a good quality video is probably about 10 minutes roughly of video content. I would never be going anywhere near 10-minute long videos. We find that 2 to 3 minute stuff works really well. And, beyond that, you start to, lose people's interest.
Yeah. So 2 to 3 minutes long. And to the uninitiated, we see a lot of videos which have got text or subtitles overlaying or appearing on the video. Can you tell us why that is and what's going on there?
Yeah, so, and this is not necessarily just specifically to LinkedIn, it's just all online content, but 85%, and it's a growing number, as in it's going higher and higher, but currently it's roughly 85% of all videos get watched without sound. The reason for that is varied, but that's the reality that, most people are wanting to watch video without sound. So you need to put the captions onto the bottom of the videos. One really good thing that's a very recent addition, LinkedIn has now allowed or released the ability to upload what's called a SRT file, which is subrip text file. So you can actually upload your video and an SRT file, and LinkedIn will just merge them together for you. It used to be you had to go and do all that in post-production work. You shoot your video first, and then whether you did it yourself or you sent it off to other people, professionals to do all that work. You have to do all that first and then upload it. You can now just get the SRT file. The easiest way to do that is actually to send it to, there's a transcription service called Rev, which is rev.com. You send your raw video to them. In less than 24 hours, they'll send you back the SRT file, and then you can just upload the two together into LinkedIn.
Yeah. And Rev make it really easy. I think they charge about $1 a minute for your video. So if you've got a 2 or 3 minute video, $3, and you've got the transcription, and then you upload both to LinkedIn, and it's up and away. Couldn't be easier. Couldn't be easier. Okay, well that's fantastic. And is there any tips or tricks or points that you would recommend to the audience for actually getting started on LinkedIn, for beginning to position themselves as an authority within the industry or as an influencer within their industry?
Look, I'd say the first thing is, exactly that, is make sure you have a good understanding of what it is you want to be influential in. You could spend a whole lot of time optimizing your profile to, and I've had people do this on a number of occasions, go through all that time and effort and then go, oh, actually, that's not even the thing I really want to be known for, so they've got to go and do it again. So start by being very, very clear with yourself, what that niche is. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's plenty of free courses and there's good books around, whatever, that can help you to do that profile optimization, or reach out to you guys or whatever, and make sure it's definitely worth spending a few bucks on like a decent headshot, for example, of yourself. That weekend selfie at the local barbecue or beach. It's all right for Facebook, but doesn't cut it on a professional platform like LinkedIn. So just that, yeah, there's lots of those little things that just up the level of professionalism for sure.
Fantastic. And I think ultimately what people really need to consider is LinkedIn is the world's largest database of businesses and those employees and employers of those businesses. And so you want to present yourself as completely, as professionally as possible. And that's exactly what your LinkedIn profile is all about.
100% correct.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Adam, thank you very much for joining us today. You've given us some absolute gems in there. It's some great points that people can have a look at, and they can apply those to getting some better results from their profiles and from LinkedIn, and importantly, how they can start to position themselves as an authority, as an influencer within their industry. So we thank you very much for being part of our interview series and for joining us today. It's been great.
Been an absolute pleasure, and let's do it again in 6 months or 12 months' time. There'll definitely be an update by then.
Absolutely. I look forward to that. Well, thank you, Adam. Much appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.